Hello everybody, so what's going on? In this video we're going to be talking about 4 questions that were asked of me by that murderer Hank. Now, he answered those questions, so if you guys haven't seen his video, go and check that daggum thing out because it was an awesome video. So now I'm going to go ahead and give my answers as well. So first question was, what was my favorite hunt? What was the best hunt I've had? So I've thought long and hard about all these questions, and I think this one here ranks up there with probably my top 3. And this one here is kind of one of the quicker stories, so I'll go ahead and tell you this one. I'll go ahead and tell the other ones later on in the year because of the freezing weather that's about to hit. Sunday's low is 0, so more than likely I'll be stuck inside making story videos and stuff like that. So my best hunt, what was my favorite hunt? Probably the second big buck I killed back in 2016. So 2016 was a great year. It really was. My mental health got a lot better. You guys may have heard about all that crap before. I made videos on it before. So in 2016, my mental health was pretty darn good. It was up there. It was a lot better than it was before. And Donald Trump won the election, which was awesome. You know, I was pretty glad about that, happy about that. And then deer season was absolutely phenomenal. It was one of the only years, actually it is the only year that I was able to kill 2 big bucks. So first one I killed, which I'll tell you guys that story, was November 13th. This one was December 7th, so it was quite a ways difference. About a month difference. So I'm sitting in the deer stand. Now this is a stand you guys have seen me do story videos on before. You guys have seen me do the on the trail videos many times out of this stand, and this stand is called the Big Buck Stand. I've killed 2 of my biggest bucks out of the stand. Those 2 bucks you guys have seen. So I'm sitting in a stand, and I set this morning, but nothing was happening. So let's backtrack a little bit. So that summer of 2016, my brother fell off a 4-wheeler and broke his arm. Right up in here, he broke his arm. So my mom, dad, and my brother were going to a doctor's appointment down south of here for his arm to check up and make sure that everything was healing right and it wasn't doing anything bad. I wanted to stay at home because I didn't really want to go anywhere. And my dad was like, all right, well, if you're not going anywhere, go over there and set up my ground blind. So I was like, okay, I can do that. I've done it before. I've killed deer out of ground blinds I've set up. So it shouldn't be too hard. So I set up the ground blind, and he had a doe tag, 1 doe tag. Let's go ahead and get that out there. So I set up the ground blind underneath of a pine tree. It's a perfect looking setup. It's awesome looking. I go out and I check it, and honestly, it just looks like a small branch of the pine tree is just fallen over, and there's nothing underneath of it, it looks like, but there's actually the ground blind. So it was an awesome looking setup. Now my dad, he's hunting with a crossbow for a doe. So I'm thinking, I've got this thing set up perfect. He has a 20-yard shot out this window, and he has about a 30-yard shot out this window, and even if he wants to, he could take a shot out the back door. This window here was all blocked off by the tree, but, whatever, that's fine. So I leave. I come back the next evening to go hunting. My dad goes hunting with me. He goes out, he sits in his ground blind waiting on a doe. I go up there, I have a buck tag and a doe tag in my pocket. And I just got word that evening. I talked to my dad before we went hunting. He said if it's a brown, it's down, which basically means kill whatever walks in front of you. So I was like, okay, whatever walks in front of me, I'm shooting it. And usually when that call happens, something's going to walk in front of me and I'm going to kill it. It's happened 3 years. 3 different years I've gotten the call to brown, it's down, shoot whatever walks in front of you. That's what happened this year. That's why I killed that little 6-pointer. I got the call that morning. If it's brown, it's down. It walked in front of me, and I shot it. So I had that call that evening, and I was prepared to shoot whatever walked in front of me. So I'm sitting there, and my dad is sitting about 1.5 miles away. Down, it'd be southwest of me is where he's sitting in the ground blind. Perfect looking location for me and him to sit, and we can kind of cover a good little area. So he's sitting in this one stand, and he's sitting in that ground blind, and I'm sitting in my stand, and neither one of us see anything for a long time. We don't see nothing. And then pretty soon, I text him, and he says that he's at home. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. But he says nothing to me about any deer. So I'm sitting there, and about an hour and 9 minutes, we actually calculated up, 1 hour and 9 minutes go by. And I'm sitting there, and I'm standing up to get ready to go. And I stand up, and I have my bow in my hand, and I look in front of me, and there's a deer walking right straight down the trail. I'm going to be at 25 yards. Now, let's go back to 2015. 2015, I was not able to kill anything with a bow. So I knew this spot, though, because I had missed a big doe in this spot. This was a spot that was at 25 yards exactly. I had shot for 20 and hit for 20, but the deer is at 25. So I done a trick that I've always done. I've killed a lot of deer doing this trick, and that was Kentucky winding. That's what I've been told it's called. I don't know if there's actually an actual name for it. I was told that it was called Kentucky windage. Basically, there's a space in between each pin. One pin was 20, one pin was 30. I made that little space into an imaginary pin that was my 25-yard pin. I put that 25-yard pin, which basically meant my 20-yard pin was high, my 30-yard pin was low, and that 25-yard pin was dead center. I sent that arrow, and it hit straight through the shoulder, went straight through the shoulder and hit one of the ribs and broke the rib. Now I hear this big crack, and I'm thinking, okay, I just smoked this thing, because I was aiming dead center for the shoulder, and when I heard that crack, I knew that arrow hit the bone and went straight on through. And, I mean, it just went boom. I mean, it was one of the loudest arrow hits I've ever had. And it runs off, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening, and I've always heard, you know, if you hear the deer fall, usually it doesn't go very far. So I'm listening, and all of a sudden it just goes quiet. And I never really hear it fall, but it just goes quiet. So I call up my dad, and I said, Dad, I just killed a deer. And he goes, okay, now let's backtrack a few seconds here. I didn't know what this deer was. All I knew that it was a deer. I didn't know if it was big. I didn't know if it was a 200-incher or a spike. All I knew was it was a pretty good bodied deer, and it's dead now. That's pretty much what I knew. So I called up my dad, and I'm talking to him on the phone, and he goes, well, that sucks. And I said, why? And he goes, well, I just seen a gigantic buck out of that ground blind, and I was going to let you hunt it in the morning. And I was like, oh, well, that sucks. Oh, well, we don't have any more doe tags, or we don't have any more buck tags. And he goes, okay, well, we'll go and sit and find it. So he comes out there, and we meet up, and we're talking and stuff, and he says that this monster buck came in at 20 yards right in front of him, and he couldn't do anything about it because he had a doe tag. So he said, okay, well, let's go ahead and try to find your deer, and we'll worry about that big buck next year. So we go, we find the deer, and we're walking up the trail. Now, I'm behind him searching for, you know, any blood spots that may have led him astray, maybe went to the left or the right or whatever. And so I guess I got on his nerves a little bit because I kept asking if he's finding blood. You know, you got blood, you got blood, you got blood. So he just starts rattling off, you know, blood, 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 deer, and instantly I just light up. And I think that I pretty much just jumped over him and the log that was behind him over in front of him to the deer. I mean, I don't even think I walked or anything. I think I just jumped. And I stand there and I'm like, holy crap, this is a big buck. This is not a small deer. And he says, holy crap, Michael, this is the same deer I seen. And I was like, no way. And he says, yeah, because look at the tines. And the tines are bladed, which instantly told me that, you know, he had seen this deer. Because how would he know that this deer had bladed tines if he hadn't seen it? And it was the same exact deer that he's seen. We calculated up the next day. It was an hour and 9 minutes from the point where my dad seen him to the point that he was right in front of me at 20 yards and I killed him. It was incredible. Like, I don't think that we could have got any luckier at that moment. You know, to go from 60, 70 yards away from my dad, right up in front of him, 20. That's pretty much what he did. He walked in a big C shape, is what my dad said he did. He walked right next to him. When he first seen him, he was about 60 or 70 yards away. Walked right in front of him at 20, went circled right around, walked right up, and walked right in front of me at 20 yards. I don't know how in the world we got that lucky, but we did, which I think was incredible. But an hour and 9 minutes difference from the point where he was 20 yards in front of me, or 20 yards in front of my dad, to the point where he was 20 yards in front of me and I shot it. I think that's pretty cool. So the next question was, what was your worst hunt? So the worst hunt I've ever been on. Now, I've never really had a day where I've missed a bunch of deer or I missed a big buck, which I've missed a big buck before, which I don't believe that was my worst hunt ever. I'll tell that story later on in the week, when I missed that big buck. But I don't believe that was my worst hunt ever. My worst hunt ever was the same year as I killed those two big bucks. Somewhere in like 20s, November 23rd or something like that, somewhere in that area, a huge cold front decided to come through, and it brought a whole day and a half of pure rain and ice. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go hunting, rain, sleet, snow, shine, whatever it is, I'm going hunting all day. Now, my stupid self didn't bring any food and only one bottle of water. So I go, and I'm sitting, and I go out hunting, and luckily I was on the ground. I think the only thing that saved me from getting hypothermia or pneumonia was me moving. I was not sitting in one spot in a tree stand. I was walking around. And I think that kind of saved me from getting really sick, because my body was still getting warm, off of my movements. I only seen one deer that whole day. It was a small 7-pointer, no shot whatsoever. It was just terrible. I sat out there for somewhere around 12 hours straight in pouring down ice cold rain. Think of it this way. Let's think of you got, ice water. You got a bucket of ice water. You fill that water halfway full of water, and then you put, the other half full of ice cubes. Just think of getting that continuously dumped on you for 12 hours straight. It was terrible. I hated every second of it. My bow was soaked. I was soaked. I was wearing 4 layers of pants and top, shirts, coats, and stuff. And supposedly, the pants I was wearing and 2 of the jackets that I was wearing were supposed to be waterproof, but they weren't. I don't know if it was waterproof to a certain extent, maybe, but after sitting out there for 12 hours straight, they were not waterproof at all. Oh, Lord, it was cold. I'm getting chills thinking about that day because it was terrible. How I didn't get sick, I honestly don't know. I think the only reason was that I was moving around. I think if I was sitting in a deer stand that day, I probably would have got hypothermia or pneumonia or something because it was bad. It was terrible. I'll never go sit out in rain, snow, sleet like that ever again. Nope, never again, because it was brutal, terrible. Next question was, who got you started in deer hunting? So when I first started deer hunting was in 2010, 9 years ago almost. November, whatever day it was, I'd say it probably like the 23rd or something like that, of 2010 was the opening day of shotgun season. And I, being the young person that I was shotgun hunting. And my dad said, all right, well, you're using the slug gun. I was using a single shot slug gun with a red dot scope. And we went out hunting that day. Now, I can actually remember what I was wearing, believe it or not. I was wearing a light camouflage. It wasn't really real camouflage. Like, it wasn't really like these pants. It wasn't real tree or anything like that. It was kind of just like that gray, brown, orange, or not orange, gray, brown, white blotch kind of a camo. It wasn't really like leaves and trees and stuff like that. It was just kind of a random coat that I had. And then an orange vest. That's pretty much what I was wearing. And blue jeans. So I'm sitting in this ground blind with my dad, and we were facing the west. We were expecting the deer to come from the west. We were sitting there, and deer ended up coming from the east, and I shot the biggest doe out of all of them. And that was my first experience of deer hunting. Now, I killed a couple squirrels before that, but that was my first experience deer hunting. And, out of all the people that were hunters in my life that I know, he was pretty much the only one that really taught me about hunting. He was the guy that taught me how to hunt, and honestly, I credit him for a lot of my stuff, because the day that I killed the buck that, the first buck, the 145, the day I killed it, I was actually planning on going to a different stand completely, and he ended up convincing me to go to the big buck stand, and that's why it's called the big buck stand, because I killed that buck out of it. And he's probably the reason why I killed the second buck too, because he went to that ground blind and I ended up going up to that big buck stand so we wouldn't be so close to each other. And I'd say he's probably the reason why I killed both those bucks. He's pretty much the reason why I've killed any of my deer, really, because if he wouldn't have got me into hunting, then I wouldn't be a hunter, and I wouldn't have killed anything. So I credit him for a lot of my successes in hunting and fishing, a lot of my successes in fishing. You know, he's taught me a lot of things, and I've taught him a ton of things that he never knew, and I never knew a lot of stuff about fishing. So, you know, he's the guy that taught me how to do fishing, hunting, a lot of the different things, the outdoors. So he was the guy. So if you are watching this, Dad, thank you for that. I don't think you actually watch my videos. I don't know, but thank you for watching it if you do. So the last question was a good question. I liked this question a lot. What was your favorite video to make? Sorry, I had a stupid moment. Couldn't think of the next word to say. What was your favorite video to make? My favorite video to make, now I had a lot of different videos that come to mind. And I'd say number one video that I really like to make was the On the Trail video. Not the first one, not the third one, not the fourth one, the second one. The second one. The one that's like 15 minutes, 40 some seconds long. And the reason why I really liked that video was because I was able to take people who are all across the world and all across the country, you know, people that don't deer hunt, people that do deer hunt. I was able to take them and follow the blood trail all the way from point A to point B, from the point where I shot it all the way around to the point where I found it. You know, and it was a genuine reaction. You know, all of them were genuine reactions when I first found them, but it was awesome. In my opinion, it was awesome. I was able to find the deer on film, walk up right on top of it pretty much, and didn't even know it was there. They're probably my favorite video to make was that one. If I had to list a fishing video out of all my favorite fishing videos that I've done, probably one of the two, another big one on the slammer worm videos. Probably one of those two would have to be probably my favorites. One of those two. I don't know which one. They're both pretty good. You know, they were both pretty darn good fish on video, and I was pretty happy with both of them. So thank you guys for watching. The next person that I want to see do this video is Sportsman 101. I don't believe he's already done it. If he did, I apologize. I must not have seen the video. But I don't believe he's done it yet, so I'd like to see his answers because he makes some pretty awesome content. So thank you guys for watching once again. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye.